Could I invite the children up for a few moments, if you'd like to come up? Hey, everybody. How you doing? How's the summer? Good. No school? Yeah.
No, I am like school.
Very good. Hey, a quick little story for you. So on Friday afternoon, I got some really, really bad news. And it doesn't matter the news, I'll talk to the adults a little bit about it. But what was interesting is, I don't know what you do when you get bad news or when things don't go too well. And something really wonderful happened to me. So I found out about this at about 4:30, and Friday night at 6 o'clock, we celebrated Mass here. It was the Feast of the Sacred Heart. It was our parish feast day. And so it was really, really great for me. I got to come and I got to celebrate Mass with about 65, 70 people, something like that. And I don't know if you remember this, some weeks ago, I pointed out to you that when we celebrate Mass, we believe Jesus is present. And one of the ways that Jesus is present at the Mass is through you, through the people who attend. And so it was really nice. I needed some comfort on Friday afternoon, Friday evening. And so I came and I celebrated the Mass. And just because there were people there joining me and praying, I just felt God's comfort. And it was really nice. I just want to let you know, sometimes when things go bad, we want someone or something to offer us comfort. And we do all sorts of things maybe to feel a little better, But sometimes, I think all the time, we want to remind ourselves that God loves us and God's willing to offer comfort to us. And so for me, on Friday night, he offered me comfort through the fact that I had about 60, 70 people show up to attend Mass, and they got a chance to pray with me and pray for the person I was concerned about. Okay? So remember that when you need some help, God's there to help you. Okay? All right, thanks so much. Always appreciate you guys being here. This line in the gospel where Jesus says, "The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few." It's not an uncommon passage. You probably have heard it before. You probably mostly have heard it talked about in terms of vocations, because of course Jesus goes on to say, "So ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest." And so that passage is often used to talk about vocations. You and I, we should pray for vocations. Ask God to send laborers into the harvest. So it's a wonderful thing to do, don't get me wrong, but I'm not actually sure that's what Jesus has got in mind when he says this. Because if you put it in its context, there is no priesthood like you and I know it. At that point, to be a priest for the Jewish nation, you just had to be born in the correct tribe. If you were born into this tribe, you were a guy, you became a priest. That's how that worked. There was no discernment, no choice really in it. And so Jesus isn't clearly talking that way. I think it's a little more general. He's asking us, all of us, to be laborers in the vineyard. The question, though, of course, is when you get to that moment, is you start to realize, well, how? How am I supposed to be a laborer in the vineyard? Because then every time the word evangelization comes up, I've mentioned this before, lots of people get a little, ooh, not that thing. Because we are reminded of maybe examples that we've seen of people being evangelists, and they were a little forceful, knocking on a door on a Saturday morning, and it made us uncomfortable. And we don't like the idea of us doing that. But so you're going to remind yourself that, just take the analogy, laborers in a vineyard. Not everybody does the same thing. We are all called in our own way to help the Lord in the vineyard. And so some of us, we've got different talents than other people. We got different strengths, different weaknesses. And we need to consider, well, what is the Lord calling me to do? But we absolutely need to know I need to get into the vineyard. I was thinking about this early in the week, and I was thinking, well, the next thing to do in the homily would be to talk about some specific examples, perhaps. And then I got home Friday afternoon about 4:30 from my typical Friday bicycle ride. And I found out that Gino Mader had died. You don't know that name. I know that doesn't mean anything to you. Gino, 26-year-old professional bicyclist. On Thursday, I found out he, in descending a mountain in a race called the Tour de Suisse, the Tour of Switzerland, he and another guy sort of missed a turn, and they went off the side of a bit of a cliff. And I guess the paramedics got to him pretty quick, and they were able to revive him, but he died Friday morning in a hospital in Switzerland. I'm not sure why his death matters to me quite so much, but it struck me. It really did. It struck me hard, as if I knew him much better than I actually do. And I spent the next day, looking up some more things about him. Some of it I knew, some of it I did not. Turns out I found this really nice, I guess, sort of a eulogy, but it was sort of almost like a sports eulogy. It was written by a sports writer. But it was terrific. Told a little bit about him, told a little bit of his struggles. I guess he had a little bit, some issues. It wasn't clear what those are. The sports writer had said that he had some troubles on and off the bike. But it also told about his best success. He won the award for the Vuelta a España, the Tour of Spain, a 21-day bicycle race. He was the best young rider a couple years ago. It was a great success for him. And they talked about his humility as he won that. And also, as a part of that, it became known that he was supporting a charity in Africa that provided bicycles to people. I don't know if you know this, but school kids in Africa, if you've got to walk to school and then walk home, you don't have enough time to help out the family. But if you can ride a bicycle to school and ride it home, then you got plenty of time because you can save all that time. And Gino evidently raised, a couple thousand euros for that cause during his success in the Vuelta that year. Lots of little stories like that, but the thing that struck me most was that there was no reference whatsoever about his faith. Now, that may be just because, of course, I'm reading sports writers mostly, and maybe that's just not the sort of thing that one of them would bring up. But somehow I just had this fear that here was a 26-year-old guy who had never been told about the gospel. When we do funerals, I don't know if you've ever been to one, but, we start the funeral by sprinkling the coffin in the back or the urn, and we say, in the waters of baptism, and we say the name of the deceased. In the waters of baptism, they died with Christ and rose again into new life. And I just was thinking to myself, is what's going to happen? Are they going to do a funeral for this guy and nobody's going to be able to say that? Nobody's going to say, oh yeah, he was baptized. He knew the Lord. And so thinking about this passage, about us going into the vineyard and thinking about Gino, suddenly it was like, oh my word, are there 26-year-old people in this community for whom this is a possibility? Some tragedy might befall them, today, tomorrow, whatever, and that no one's going to be able to sprinkle on their ashes and say, in the waters of baptism, they died with Christ. I just thought that was a horrible thought. And it made this passage come alive a little bit for me. It just put a little bit more emphasis, if you will, a little more importance. And that's all I think I'm hoping to do today for you, is just to remind you that it's easy for you and I to come to Mass and to live out our Christian walk and to be concerned about areas of our life where we need to do better. That's all good and important, but we do have an obligation to the Ginos of our community. Now, how you handle that, it's going to be a lot of ways. For some, yes, it is speaking the gospel. For other people, it is living out the gospel. For a lot of us, maybe it's some combination of both. I don't know what it is, but we need to make sure that all the Ginos of our community have an opportunity to know of the gospel. Jesus only ever told the disciples, he just wanted them to witness. That is, to tell people what they had experienced themselves. That's all we are asked to do. We're not asked to give theological, discussions and answer big, highfalutin questions. All you and I need to do is just talk about our faith when we have an opportunity, not to force it on people, but as the opportunity presents itself, we just need to share. I go to church Sundays. Absolutely. Wouldn't miss it. Because what you're hoping for is that somebody might say, well, why do you do that? What difference does it make? And hopefully you've got an answer. You can say, it makes a big difference. Like the story I told the kids. Friday, after hearing that news, I don't know why, but I'm just really feeling this. And during the Mass, I got 60, 70 people praying with me, and they don't know that in the back of my mind that I'm thinking of Gino as I'm praying, but just having those people around me, having people understand that, faith matters. That made all the difference to me on Friday night. Jesus wants us to pray, to send workers out in the vineyard, and he wants us to be in the vineyard too. Let's do that. Let's share as we can in our whatever way that's possible. Let's share the good news of the Lord.